Hey, this is Spike from the Gimme Gimmes, and you're listening to Crash and Bleed.
So, Spike, this band started in 1995. That kind of makes this like the 30th anniversary
Yeah,
of
is
the
this a
band.
silver anniversary or a platinum, aluminum? I don't know.
Well, it's a Christmas anniversary. We can just say that. I think this episode will come out on Christmas Day.
Yeah, of the virgin birth.
Yeah. So, I wanted to get started with a pretty difficult question, actually. I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask you, who would you say was the most iconic punk rocker of all time?
Well, my favorite singer is Chris Bailey from the Saints. May he rest in peace and power. Um, just because he had kind of a low register kind of swagger to the way he sang, and just the hero of the culture to me, because I don't even know if they had the Ramones when they started as a band in like Podunk, Brisbane, Australia. Like, I think the only examples they had were the Stooges and Radio Birdman, and they still managed to like invent something far off in the antipodes that that it is still a reference. That like they created a like when you take the rock out of punk rock, you're left with nothing. All right. And that to me, the Saints are they were like the progenitors of punk rock and roll, as we understand it. I mean, you could go back and say that the New York Dolls were, or the Velvet Underground, but as far as like a rock and roll sound, and I don't know why Australians are the ones that do it, that do the American swagger the most convincingly. Maybe it's because they're mutant hillbillies like us, but I just love the way the Saints. To me, my introduction to them was "Eternally Yours," and the idea when I first heard it would have been like around 1984, almost 10 years after the record had come out. But to hear a wind section in punk songs was, I think it was unheard of when they recorded the record in 1977. But it is just the coolest. And I don't mean like some kind of ska punk thing or something like that. It was not really my bag, but like like a cool syncopated wind section, like it's signature to the first song on Eternally Yours. And then of course I discovered I'm Stranded, which is the record, their first record, which seemingly they had, as I said, no frame of reference for. So they were just weirdos. They weren't like necessarily standing on anybody's shoulders except for Iggy's. And that to me, like, that's pretty heroic because they probably caught a lot of shit in the city of Brisbane. You know, I can only say from like in the 1980s in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, catching a lot of shit, caught a lot of shit. So I can only imagine like them, nobody had ever seen or heard anything like that, probably. So I imagine there were probably some pretty violent reactions from some pretty sociopathic people. I don't know if you've ever been to the Antipodes, but wow, you know, they're like bad guys from westerns, man. Like that. And what are they so mad about? I don't know. You
So,
win, right?
is it safe to say that you're not a huge fan of anything that came after the 70s? Did you get into it in the 70s or the early 80s?
No, I got into it in the 80s. No, I dig some stuff in the 80s. I absolutely dig some stuff, but most of the stuff that I dig was kind of branching off, you know, like the Cramps and the Gun Club are great groups from the 80s. Who else? Yeah, there was all sorts, and people were kind of experimenting with a more hard rock sound, for better and for worse. Like a lot of the hardcore bands put out some pretty questionable records as the 80s plodded on. But yeah, I love stuff from the 80s. And then the 90s, there's a lot of great garage and surf punk in the early 90s, specifically from Seattle and the Bay Area and Los Angeles. The Cynics from my hometown of Pittsburgh were another great sort of 60s revival band. In fact, I think before they ever said the word garage, they were calling it 60s punk in sort of like in hindsight, because it wasn't called punk at the time. But I think the guy that actually invented the term punk was Lenny Kaye, the guy that compiled the Nuggets compilations. I don't know if you've ever heard those.
I've
Um,
heard of it. But
yeah.
I was gonna say, like, you're making me think of the Dwarves. You keep saying like
Oh yeah,
'60s
the Dwarves
garage
are the
rock.
excellent. That's some great music from the '80s and '90s. In fact, Blood, Guts, and Pussy ranks with the greatest punk records of all time. And I love Sugar Fix. Like that's like a weird. You could almost call that a grunge record.
It is. I had Blag on the podcast. We called it grunge. That's his grunge record.
Yeah, and it's a good like melodic. It's not precious. It's not. you know like it doesn't sound like a fucking Alice in Chains record or anything, but it definitely has like that 90s. I don't know what, like it's sound, but the songs, I love the songs. Smack City, Is There Anybody Out There? Yeah, those are great songs. But if we're talking like Blood, Guts, and Pussy and Thank Heavens for Little Girls, like those are punk iconic punk classics, I
Yeah,
believe. And they
I
were a
do
San
too.
Francisco band, so we're talking, and they may have been kind of outliers within or without, that the scene that was kind of going on with the Trash Women and the Mummies and Supercharger and all those groups. But they were an SF band at that time, SF Bay Area. I'm proud to say a lot of changes since then. It's a different town. I mean, it's a different world.
Yeah. Well, okay, so is it safe to say that the Gimme Gimmes are punk rock's most famous cover band?
Uh, you, uh, that's like an underground bunker guarded by. You are so safe in saying that, and I feel comfortable reiterating it. Yes, we are the greatest cover band of all times. Not even within the punk idiom, within or without. Uh, we are the greatest. Yes, we are the cover band. We're not a cover band. We are the cover band. That is this much. That is objectively true. Um, and I say that obviously without ego or you know or pridefulness, or anything like that. But yes, we are. Yeah, I just resent the insinuation that it would be only within the punk idiom. No, we are the greatest cover band of all times, of all genres. Um, and we are all seasons, all holidays. We are punctual. We are organized. We are prompt. We are prepared. But okay, some of our fans, I should say, need to work on their time management skills. But to that end, we have printed a Spike in the Gimme Gimmes 2026 calendar to record and plan your events throughout the year. So no more excuses. And there will be a flexi of our brand new song, "All I Want for Christmas Is You." I think it's destined to become a Christmas classic, this song, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, it might already be, man. Do you care about that? Do you look at the numbers of streams that songs have or downloads?
Oh, I don't know. I just meant the song itself as written, not necessarily our version. I think it's destined to become a Christmas classic that you hear every year. Jeez. It seems like, in all seriousness, though, it seems like they don't even lift a finger to promote it anymore. It just has this natural, spontaneous, like media blitz that happens, you know, at in early November. Like they have to wait until after Halloween just to be respectful and dignified. But once that's done, she defrosts, just like the memes say. And that song, like I swear, they don't need a publicist. It just happens. And so we're kind of piggybacking on that natural publicity, as is our want. You know.
All right, man. Well, I was really curious because there's obviously a legacy involved with this band now, 30 years in. Going back to the beginning, can you remember the first time that you met Fat Mike, Joey Cape, some of these early band members?
Yeah, well, Mike, I used to work at a music distributor that distributed his label, and we met, we got along. He seemed to like me, but we distributed his label. We distributed Bomp Records uh, out of Los Angeles. We had Posh Boy, Thrill Jockey, Amphetamine Reptile. I became friends with those guys. I don't know if you remember that. That was a good '90s. A lot of good stuff that they put. I think the most famous thing that they would have put out would have been Helmet Records. A lot of Melvin's records too. Great label, Amphetamine Reptile. I worked there. Mike came once or twice to see me sing with a cover band that I was in with a couple dudes from Psychotic Pineapple, who were sort of like a very early, I guess you'd call them a punk band, except that they weren't like there wasn't really a punk scene yet, so to speak. And they had like Brian Jones haircuts. So they were sort of like a missing link between 66 kind of music and like the punk music that was soon to come. I had a cover band with them in, I guess, yeah, you'd say the early mid 90s. And Mike came to see that. And, given my underwhelming performance in the shipping department, they were desperate to put me someplace where I could do no harm or less harm. Uh, and that was Mike. Joey, I met, I think, just through Mike and through working at Fat Records because he would come in periodically. And it was their idea to do the covers band. I didn't know Joey all that well when they approached me to do it. Um, and
Had
I
you not
barely
heard
knew Chris.
Lagwagon? You hadn't heard of Lagwagon or anything?
No, not until Mike put out their record and until the distributor that I worked at, distributed their records. Not really my style of music, so it didn't really come up on my radar. But no, so I hadn't really heard of any of those bands prior to like working for a distributor that carried Epitaph for some time and it carried Fat. But they were just a couple labels among several that our distributor uh, distributed. And then eventually, because of my experience there shipping, I was given the job in the shipping department at Fat. So it had more to do with shipping than it had to do with, music, ironically. I'm a
What
back of
was
the
your
house guy. I've always been a back of the house guy. Usually, like if I got to have a real job, it's in a restaurant, and I am not fit for the front of the house. But except in this case, strangely enough, but in this case, I got a big barricade, so I control people without consequences. Which is nice.
Yeah. Who else did we have in the band in those early days?
We had Dave Ron. Also, he was from RKL, and he would eventually play with Lagwagon, and Chris Shiflett, who would, I believe, at the time he was playing with No Use for a Name, and sometime maybe it was at the late '90s or like around 2000, he would go on to join the Foo Fighters and tour and record with them.
Yeah. Uh, Am I making this up? Did Jay Bentley play in the band? Kind of
He
off
sure
and on?
did. He
Yeah?
sure did.
Were you a
Brian
Bad
Baker
Religion
played in the
fan?
band for a time.
Really?
Yeah, it's we've had weird lineup changes throughout the years. And then Scott Shiflett, Chris Shiflett's brother, played in the band.
Wait, so who was the best Shiflet?
Who was the best Shiflett? Uh, that's difficult to say, man. Like there's a lot of friendly sibling rivalry between the two. Um, like best in what way? But it's difficult to say. We did most of our touring was done with Scott, as the Foo Fighters were a very demanding and much better paying organization. So I'd say quantitatively, it was Scott because we just played more with him than we ever did with Chris.
Yeah.
Although Chris had sort of the founding, was one of the so-called founding members and uh, did all of the recordings up until very recently. Well, I guess not that recently because the last release we did with him was quite a while ago. But no, we did a lot of touring with Scott
Yeah.
and not so much with Chris. Want to say we did a Warp tour and maybe a Canadian tour with him, you know, but he was busy. He was getting busy, which is, that's the dream, right? To stay busy. That's what the old people, when they're in hospice, they grab you by the shoulder, look you dead in the eyes, and they say, "Stay busy." Right? That's the that's the trick. But also, you could stay busy, and if you're not being remunerated, what fucking good is it, right?
Mm. Well,
In my
let's talk
business,
about.
money is respect. Money is a surrogate for respect and love and all of these other like wholesome emotions and phenomena. Money is the stand-in, so it's it makes everything seem kind of transactional, but it's just sort of a stand-in for everything else. Like all the other stuff is still there. It's just the only way you can quantify it is in dollars and pounds and euros. You know, I hate it, but I live in it, just like we all do.
Yeah. Well, let's just talk about getting busy in the studio for a couple of minutes here. Like, who would you say
Sure.
was the most particular band member about, using specific types of gear in the studio or getting their specific parts recorded?
Um. Well, with this lineup now, I wouldn't say that we're particularly precious about uh anything. Like we obviously want to sound good and we don't want to be made to sound bad, but a lot of that comes with just sort of preparation and staying good at what you do. Like the ideal is to find people you don't have to yell at, you know so that you don't have to have unpleasantness with to get what you want to hear, or better yet, they get what they want to hear, and that just magically happens to be what you want to hear too. So, no, this new batch of players, we got Pinch, who founded the English Dogs, one of the founders of the English Dogs, and was snatched up by the damned for 20 years. They wouldn't let him out of their clutches until we, the cover band, uh, demanded his release. And also CJ Ramon. Like I got to pinch myself to just the very notion that I'm playing with a Ramon, with a man, a giant who walked among giants, a living, walking, talking, slaying piece of punk rock history and present, and not only a wonderful travel companion, conversationalist. Um, erudite, yeah, a great, just all around renaissance man of a bass player. Jake
I
Kiley.
I was gonna say I actually have a record that has been in CJ's hands. It's a Lunachicks record from the early '90s, and somebody sold it to me claiming that he had held it in his hands. So if that's true, that's my connection to the Ramones.
Yeah, I mean, none of us are more than a handful of degrees of separation away from one another, and but just to be in the same room, just to talk with the guy, just to be regaled with stories from his illustrious past is a gift and a blessing. But to play with him, forget about it, and then we have Jake Kiley from Strung Out, a Fat alum, and who's great. um Hammer-ons, arpeggios, what have you. Like he does. He's sort of, you can almost say he's an Eddie Van Halen acolyte, and he shreds on the same streets of Los Angeles that Eddie Van Halen once shredded on. And finally, Swami John Reese of Drive Like Jehu, Rocket from the Crypt, Hot Snakes, Plosives, Bed of Nails. And no, he sets the musical bar impossibly high. Um, and we're just all just trying to meet his standards. And, you know, it's again, it's great to play with him. I've always been a fan ever since the Circa Now record. And he's an excellent, intuitive player and performer and travel companion, I would add.
So what happened to Joey and Fat Mike and Dave? Like, why did they end up walking away?
They were busy with their other bands, and I wanted to stay busy with this band. Um,
So have you
so,
become like the captain of that ship now?
so to speak, I mean,
Yeah.
if I were left to my own devices, there probably wouldn't be a band. Like, I probably wouldn't even be dressed right now if I were left to my own devices. But I'm the front man on the stage, but it's like, when they tell you to be yourself, it kind of goes back to the weird preoccupation that starting in the 80s, especially punk bands, had with realness. You gotta be yourself, man. Be your true self and be like, dude, fuck that. Be whoever the fuck you want to be. Invent somebody. Like, if you are getting on a stage, you are going under a proscenium arch. Like, I don't care if you're playing on the floor of a basement. I don't care where it's happening. You are under a proscenium arch. Your job is to entertain people, and by whatever means necessary. And there are rules around it, like you got to close the circles somewhat, but like Volcom shorts, like board shorts and like flat billed Volcom hats don't cut it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a visual thing too. Otherwise, people would just listen to the record, right? And a lot of those bands, until around the turn of the millennium, you could still release records with two or three good songs on them, and people would be forced, essentially coerced into buying the entire record. That is not the case anymore. Like, you have to be entertaining because live is it. Your recordings are nothing more than a business card for your live experience. And to that end, that's why we did the Quinceañera record, because that's sort of like a hyperbolic kind of version of what our live show is. Anyway, we cast out the line, and we even troll and antagonize people to the point of booing before we reel them back in. There were some very awkward moments before the redemption at the end in any of our live sets, but certainly at the quinceanera. People, they're 15-year-olds, man. They were walking out in droves. What do they care about us? You know, until we played an Olivia Rodrigo song, they could not be bothered. But as in our live shows, we managed to redeem ourselves in the evening. And interestingly enough, the nights where you hear the loudest boos, those wind up being the nights that you sell the most T-shirts.
Okay. Well, okay, since you mentioned recording music and in this modern day especially, how do you feel about modern production quality? Because
I don't
there's
think
been
it's.
a loudness war for quite some time. Do you think that's still happening?
I think you could have stopped that disco, but I mean, I think you could have stopped that like mass transit. I think you could have stopped with the train. You know, like I think cars are a fucking a pox on humanity. You know what I mean? Like it's and I think train travel was like every innovation since then has devolved into like where we're just these death machines that take up our whole like you ever look at a street and think of how much like just physical space they take up, never mind the fact that they run over little kids and dogs and how many people get killed in accidents every year. But and that's kind of how I feel about all production innovations since disco, you know. It like that disco is the pinnacle of like that's as pristine as I want to hear everything, especially a punk band. Like the 90s, I feel like punk got like it got so compressed and so produced and it sounded like a fucking Toyota commercial. You know what I mean? Except for these garage and surf bands. Like it 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 seemed so um the opposite of what I felt punk was supposed to sound like. To me, one of the best produced punk records is Nevermind the Bollocks because it sounds huge, right? But it still sounds dirty. It still sounds
Yeah.
really dirty. And the stuff that came out on like a lot of labels in the 90s, a lot of sort of like, I guess you call it pop punk labels. It just sounded kind of produced and clean and sanitized. And you could almost hear the bass player in the room. Well, you can't really hear the bass. Like, man, motherfucker, you're not supposed to hear it. You're supposed to feel it, you know? And that's the same with a lot of the instruments. All you are, all any instrument is a rhythm instrument. Every instrument is a rhythm instrument and it's meant to serve the drums, which you're also not necessarily meant to hear, you're meant to feel it. Like to me, my favorite production aesthetic would be glam, early 70s British glam, and there's no mistaking it. Like Susie Quattro might have been from Detroit, but her band and producers definitely were not. You know what I mean? Like you can hear it when you hear Devilgate Drive and Daytona Demon, 48 Crash, and all that stuff. That's English. Early 70s, the Glitter Band, Mud, Slade, Sweet, and there's like variations on the theme, but it all like it is a theme. And I love the Sweet and Slade. Like I reject, you know, the notion that you have to choose. I love Mud. I love Hello.
Wasn't Slade from Wolverhampton?
They sure were.
That's exactly
And
where I
still
am right
are,
now.
presumably. They're all still here. They're all still with us. Noddy Holder. Like I said, he get like not so much here in the States, but out where you guys are, man, like it's that every year. Like they don't lift a finger. Like their promotion publicity team, like they don't have to do anything. It just naturally, spontaneously occurs every year. Noddy Holder comes out on TV with a girlfriend 40 years his junior. Dave Hill comes out and they talk about God bless them, right? And they talk about, the song, how they wrote it. And it is one of the best Christmas songs, I gotta say. But yeah, they're from Wolverhampton, but I dig them as much as I dig the Sweet, and for different reasons. Desolation Boulevard, like when I first moved to the west coast of the United States, that was on the top tier of any self-respecting punker's record collection. Desolation Boulevard was prominently featured. And go figure, like it doesn't exactly sound like a punk record, but something about it really resonated, you know, with the punkers. Fox on
So
the Run. Is that a punk song? No, but it's one of the best songs ever. You can't help but be in a good mood when you hear that song.
so
Solid
how
Gold
han-
Brass.
so how hands-on are you in the studio when it comes to like mixing? Do you sit in on the mixing sessions? Are you controlling that?
Nah, no, I just get, you know, either a perfect mix or a mix where there are a handful of tweaks or something like that. Like I said, like generally speaking, it's easier to work with, you know, and collaborate with people that you don't have to have any sort of unpleasant arguments or have to make demands with. There's just people that you're kind of gonna get something close to what you want, and that's already like 95% there. And that's generally what it is. Like if there's something like we need more of this or less of this or an echo on this or something like that. But generally speaking, no. I do sit in with the tracking for the most part. Uh but man, I'm just a singer. I'm happy to be just the singer and stuff a wild monkey suit.
Well, let's talk about some of your favorite guest vocal performances that you've done. I read recently that you'd worked on all these Dwarves albums. I had no idea about that because a lot of Dwarves albums, especially the CDs, they have no like information in the booklets. It's just like one picture, and I guess you got to get the vinyl if you want to get all that stuff.
I'm not obsessed with credit, you know, or acknowledgement. I just like to stay involved and help out with musical projects that I can identify with and respect. And the Dwarves have always been such a group and creative endeavor to me. Yeah, I dig the Dwarves. And
That's a band that makes modern music sound really good. I don't know how they're doing it, but every Dwarves album they've put out in the last, 2 decades sounds nice, crisp and clear. It's such a perfect sounding album that they do.
but still dirty.
Yeah, they've got the grittiness as well.
Still dirty. Yeah, I want to say he definitely is one that's going to sit in on mixing sessions, and uh, he, yeah, he's also, how do I put this in a sensitive way? Like he's closer to my age, maybe a little older, and so I believe the frame of reference is like I'm going to make myself sound, I'm going to really date myself here. But it seems like with every passing generation, listeners and therefore uh, recording artists and engineers and mixers expect uh, accept a lot less than like it. And I don't think, like you said, a Dwarves record sounds modern, but it's still everything is in its place, and it still sounds dirty, and it still sounds like more than the sum of its parts, right? Like to me, a record is not something where an individual instrumentalist can hear themselves. You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck about that or the vocals, but I mean, I did happen to pick the role that is sort of the most easily identifiable. But you picked being a drummer, you picked being a bass player, or this or that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what maybe generally speaking is considered a supporting role. I don't consider a supporting role. Like I consider drummers the most important aspect of a group because without them, without a strong beat, there is nothing, right? Um, So now I'm starting to forget what the answer, the question was, man. What was the,
I
because I
think
go off
I
on
think
tangents, I get, unspooled and then have a hard time finding my way back. I got to leave breadcrumbs.
yeah, I was just talking about how good the dwarves sound. Like out of all modern music, I don't really like modern production, but I do like the way the dwarves
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah. I think being of a certain age gives you a frame of reference. And, over the generations, just in the time that I've been alive and listening to music, I feel like people with each passing generation accept less and less until it just turns into like something like a Nickelodeon, like it just sounds so by the numbers these days, and it just seems like that's what people are willing to accept, and it's all that they really want because it's all that's been fed to them. So I mean, it's like, do you blame the people that are feeding it to them, or do you blame the people that are blindly accepting what they are fed? Like, that's a deep philosophical question that I don't dare address. Like
I
it's our
might
fault.
be I might be addressing that tomorrow because I've got a good music producer coming on the podcast tomorrow. So I might be questioning him on that subject.
It's a deep, to some extent, we deserve everything that we get, and not just like as far as like the quality of our music, but politics, power, business, whatever this new version of anarcho capitalism is that we're living under. I blame the English, man. You guys are the root of everything that's wrong in the States, has its roots out there, man. Like, God damn it.
We're such a small country, though. We're so non-threatening.
Yeah, but your future was on the waves, right? What a weird thing. Your future was on the waves, for better or for worse. I guess it depends on your perspective, right?
Well, okay, so you actually sang backing vocals on my favourite song of all time, which is The Decline from NoFX. Can you just talk us through that? Like one day, Fat Mike comes up to you and says, "Hey, I've got a 20-minute song." What's your initial reaction to that?
So I just go where I'm told and where they cut checks, man. Like, I hate to say it, I hate to put it in such a cynical, jaded, and look, as far as like the the message in the lyrics, I don't disagree. Certainly, it's unfortunate. It's not happy to think that way, but what I did, he literally just played me the parts that I was singing over, and then moved on to the next part that I was singing over, and I wouldn't have heard it until it was actually released.
Did you
So
not know the length of the track?
no, he mentioned like how long it was, but I didn't listen to it in its entirety while tracking it. I wouldn't have heard it the entire finished product until much later. So I didn't have much. Like, it was almost as new to me as it would be for listeners, which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah. Well, since you say you weren't a big fan of that style of music, I mean, did you listen back? Were you happy with it?
Yes. Oh, I mean, so I would listen to my parts. I try to stay professional, and you know, uh, try to do a good job, try to do my best. So I would always listen down to what I had just done and make sure that it was the best that I could do, no matter what it was that I was doing. And again, like I said, unless I had an issue with the words or the theme of why would I not do it? Mike was my buddy. Blag was my buddy. Uh, Who else did I do? I'm trying to think. Those were kind of the
Lagwagon.
two that.
You
Oh yeah,
Lagwagon Resolve.
yeah. I think I did one with Joey. So yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't know. They weren't into everything that I did either, or certainly into everything that I was into, but we were sort of around each other and we were in recording scenarios like together, or we would, record at the same recording studio. So it was just sort of a natural um it was natural that we would contact one another for assistance where we needed, and we lived in the same town, which is not the case anymore. Nobody lives in San Francisco anymore. I do. My wife does. We still love it, as much as it's changed. It's changed quite a bit.
Are you at the Punk Rock Museum right now? Is that where you are?
No, no, I'm in Anaheim, California. Not too far from Los Angeles, but down in Orange County. And we're playing at the House of Blues here in lovely, sunny Anaheim, California. A little cold, given the time of year, but nothing like what you're dealing with. But I'll soon be experiencing that. It'll be raining sideways in Newcastle, and there'll be orange girls in camisoles and fucking mini skirts walking down cobblestone streets in high heels, getting in fist fights.
Pissing
Man,
down
like it gets
drains.
serious up north, man. Like the South is, you could almost, if you squint, it's like being in the States. You know what I mean? The North, that's England. Like they're built different up there, man. I mean, it starts in the Midlands. Like it's not even the North. Like it starts in the Midlands, as far as I'm concerned. But you know, and I got mostly English DNA. It's just that I'm like 400 years removed or something like that. So you know. I still have a hard time, with somebody giving me orders in that accent. You know what I mean? But even in England, So, but no, we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna have a good time. Well, hopefully, some of the Orange Girls will come to our shows. Um, you know,
Well, let's just talk about copyright issues for a second because I
my
think the
favorite.
Gimmes have the Gimmes been victims of the copyright issues over the years.
No, it's mainly covered under satire. Once if it's a sound recording. However, when you want to do a video, for example, a sync license is required, and it's what they call it, a sync license, and that's where you need to get permission as well as pay, some sort of astronomical fee to you know to the publishing of whatever artist or the estate of whatever artist. And in one case, when we asked, Mike wanted to do our version of Desperado. He wanted to make that into a video, and so um, we asked their management and the management of the Eagles, and they responded. Uh, they took the time to say, first of all, your request is denied. And furthermore, the band wanted you to know that they hate your version. So, like, I'm like the dude in the Big Lebowski. I fucking hate the Eagles, all right? And so that was like a red badge of courage for me to wear, to know that they were not only aware of it, but they did not like it, because I categorically dislike everything they have done as individuals, as a collective. I like Joe Walsh, all right, and I love the James Gang, and Rocky Mountain Way is a fucking banger, of course. But no, No, and so we didn't do the video, which I'm cool with. But that's the thing that's hardest is to do like a video, and I feel uh like the magic of the Gimmies, if such a thing could be said to exist, is um it's in our live uh oeuvre. So that's without the visual element, you're not getting everything necessarily that you could be. So it's limiting, but that's why we play live all the time.
Hmm. All
Sorry
right,
for
man.
the long-winded
No, that's
answer.
cool. That's cool. That's cool. I had a few fan questions sent to me just from random people here and there. So this one comes from someone called Broken Head. He's asking how you ended up on the movie soundtrack, Kermit's Swamp Years. Do you know about this movie? Because they might have just
No,
like plagiarized something.
no,
So
no. Wolf of Wall. Well, we plagiarized it too. So I mean,
yeah, so
but
you did
if
the
there's
Rainbow
money,
Connection.
please, if there's money to be had, if you know any paralegals or something, and it should be said that we do have a radius clause. So, like, if I catch a cover band at a pub within, I'd say, like about a 15-mile radius, we will take legal action. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
so
we're going to be succeed, but no, we will crush any cover band within a 15 to 20-mile radius.
yeah. Yeah, so I guess the people that made that movie just sort of lifted your cover of the Rainbow Connection and just threw that in there. Unless they did reach out to you and you just forgot because it was a long time ago.
I mean, I could have forgotten. That is a plausible, scenario.
Mm.
But I don't know. Like I said, man, it's if you know a paralegal or a lawyer that works pro bono, and there's some money on the table, far be it from me to leave it there.
All right, let's see if we can get like a top three funny tour stories out of you. If there's anything that you're legally allowed to tell.
Oh man, I don't get into illegal activities on tour. Like recreational weed is pretty much legal all through the states now. Like, it's not an issue, and nor should it have been in the first place. So it's just, but had funny tour stories. Jeez,
What's the
there are just
funniest
so
thing that comes to
many, and they
mind?
they just stack on one another. Um, I can tell you one, like we weren't on tour, but we did travel to play PNC Park in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where the Pirates play. And we hadn't even gotten together to practice, I want to say in like a year or something like that. And we were booed by, I want to say, at least 30,000 people. And it was fireworks night. And we were meant to play three and were fired summarily after one. And we were told, like, maybe you guys should hang out here in the dressing room for a couple hours until the crowd has had time to disperse. Luckily, we were out of like projectile range because we were way out at second base, but we were in my hometown too. So it was like being on psychedelic drugs or something. It was really that was really quite an experience. Although, again, like with the Eagles, I would have been more hurt had they been supportive. A bunch of hillbilly baseball fans from the sticks around Pittsburgh, like, man, you know what I mean? Like, so it was like in the moment, it was excruciating, but afterwards, like when it made the front page of the local paper, I remember thinking like we really did something here.
Did you feel like that drew
And it
more
fit
people to
within
the
our
band?
our what's that?
Do you feel it drew more people to the band?
No, no, absolutely not. I think it earned us a certain kind of capital with the fans that we already had. You know, and I remember like digging through like the comments on some ESPN posts, and people who had never heard of us saying, "Yeah, they weren't so bad." Like it. That was the best that we got. So, uh, but we were pretty bad that day. Like we got there the night before to do a dress rehearsal. It was like a slow moving bullet. Like when it was a year out, I could sort of put it in the back of my mind and like not dwell on it too much. The fact that we were going to play a baseball stadium to people that were going to be like an understatement to say they were going to be disinclined to digging us or our oeuvre. But like as it got closer, like when it was a week out, I remember thinking, God, we're really still doing this, aren't we? And having grown up in Pittsburgh, I had a feeling how it was going to go. And so we do a full dress rehearsal. Like we go out on the mobile stage, it wheels out to the second base, and they put off some of the fireworks, some like loud like bombs, and we play. And when the whole thing is done, like one of the union stagehand guys, local Pittsburgh dude, he's looking up at us and he's just got his mouth open and he's silent for like a good 20 seconds. And then he looks around at his coworkers and said, "Well, it is what it is." And then we moved on to the next day, and it went kind of like how was it going to go any other way? And I remember looking over at Mike, and he had this shit eating grin on his face, and I couldn't look at him for the whole rest of the performance, or I think I would have panicked, like I was panicking. And then the best I could do was do like, the Queen wave at the end of it. And then the booze got even louder. And then we got wheeled. The people were throwing shit onto the field. And yeah, somebody told us like I'd give it an hour or two down here and give the crowd a chance to disperse. And then a friend of a friend, they came to our hotel room really drunk, um, threw up in our bathtub.
All right, man. So you guys are putting out a new Christmas single. You decided to do this on a flexi disc. Like, what was the reason for the flexi disc?
Well, because the flexi disc could be easily mounted in the calendar that we graciously put out to keep people punctual. And, we get a lot of late stragglers coming in. We're on our sixth song or something like that. And I feel like that's poor time management skills. So, um, you know, we're not just in it to make money, we're in it to help.
So what's this calendar then? Is it just members of the band in like firemen outfits or shirts
Yeah.
off? I mean, what are we doing?
We're your favorite 50 something boy band. Um, and uh, we so it's like a calendar, where we get in silly, comical scenarios and situations, kind of according to the seasons or the holidays and the time of year. Um, it's all going to make sense when you see it. It will all
Yeah,
make
man.
sense. I promise. What Swami John Reese does for Easter time, what I do for St. Patrick's Day, but it's expected but unexpected as well. I think you're going to find some surprises, and I really think you're going to dig our new Christmas single, which is not only on a flexi. I mean, you can also stream it. You know,
Mm. Were you always like a fan of like novelty vinyl releases?
nah. I mean, like I love vinyl because I love hearing things on vinyl, but I'm not the person that needs to seek out the original first pressing of anything. Like I don't mind like the pops and scratches on the record, but they're not necessary to me for me to enjoy a record. Sometimes if it's mastered well or if it's like remastered in a nice uh, attentive way, then I'd rather get the whatever the 100 and whatever gram repressing of something than go seek out some sort of holy grail first pressing of whatever it is. I just dig music. Like if a flexi sounds good, like if that's the only way they're going to put it out, then I'll listen to it. In this case, we did it because that we liked the way it fit with the calendar. You know,
Yeah. Well, you guys are always pretty funny on stage. I mean, how'd you come up with the album names and the album covers?
that those I don't know. I think I only ever came up with "Rake It In," but that's because I'm very cynical uh, and accept money as a stand-in for like respect and love. You know what I mean? Because I'm a cynical, disgusting, venal, reptilian American small businessman. But um, wait, what was the question again? God damn it! I come unspooled and
How
then
you
can't find my way back to the
how you
matter
come up
at
with
hand.
the how you come up with the album titles and covers?
Oh, well, the covers thing. So you come up with quite a few, and then the process of elimination is generally like if it takes more than 15 minutes to get a diggable version of any given song, then we're on the wrong track. We need to switch gears, move on to the next uh song. And that's as far as picking the songs. As far as naming the themes, it generally has to, like, if it's a country record, um, Love Their Country, I think, was meant to sort of ironically, like I don't not love my country, but I'm not a jingoistic. Like I'm a pinko, is what we call them in the States. You know what I mean? I'm very far to the left of whatever the mythical center is, but we try to stay out of politics and just show people a good time, man. It's hard to avoid politics. And I'm not saying that you should, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be informed, but that's not what we're for, you know? We're here to
Just
troll the average crowd.
well, just before we wrap up, then, do you have like a funny Fat Mike story that you could tell us?
Oh God, there are some like where do I start and where do I end? He's a funny dude. A funny fat Mike story. Just I've seen like the problem with it is that it's not like individual tours that you remember specific events or locations about. It's all one big tour and the information gets scrambled and the memories inaccurate and man, that like I think deciding to play the Pirates fireworks night was one of the funniest things that he ever did. And I think he threw all of us under the bus when he chose to do that because none of us really wanted to get booed. I had a sort of feeling in my gut that that was going to happen. And I remember Dave Ron looking up and saying, "Are they booing us?" And Mike, with a shit eating grin on his face, like, this is exactly what he wanted. And it was one of the best sort of like I guess you call it a prank because it was a prank on the other members of his band. It was a prank on all of the people watching. Uh, so I don't know if that's. I mean, yeah, that's funny, and it was kind of a stroke of genius, in my opinion, like a crazy sort of anti publicity stunt. And but you know, he's got vision, if nothing else.
Yeah. So then, looking back, which album are you most proud of?
I like the first two the best, and of those, I'd say like the second one is the one closest to my heart. just because of the cover, we all got to do drag, and that's kind of funny. And the songs themselves and the way everything sounded, it was still we were still recording to tape at that time, so there's the parameters. It's like actual parameters. Recording to tape is like, you got to be good in the practice room to record to tape. And like you can loop things, you can cobble things together, but the actual performances themselves have to be good. Whereas with Pro Tools and digital recording sessions, I feel like that's somewhat less so. It's easier for a shitty band to make something that sounds like they're not a shitty band.
Do you have like a home recording studio?
No, not really. Not really good. I got to check it a little bit, but
Yeah.
not as such. I got a Logic rig that I run. That's about it. I no professional recording aesthetics or anything like that. I'm mainly just demoing things, and then if it's worth like recording for real, it's worth paying somebody to do it. Is how I see it.
Yeah. Favorite Gimme song?
Sunday morning coming down.
Okay. I think mine's Nothing Compares to You. Or
Oh,
My
thank you,
Favorite Things. With the generator intro, that's a really good one.
thank you.
That's it, dude. 30 years of the Gimme Gimmes on this special Christmas episode of Crash and Bleed here. Thank you so much for doing this, man. This has been so fun.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
I can connect with more people from the band at some point. Maybe you can hook me up with that.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. It's hard to herd the cats, man. Thankfully, I don't have to do it.
All right, dude, I'll let you get out of here, man. Thanks so much for
Cheers,
doing this.
man. Thank you. Thank you for your time, man.
Yeah, man.
Have a good one.
Have a good one, dude. Merry Christmas.
Merry fucking Christmas.
So kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you'll never let me go. 'Cause I'm leaving on a jet plane. Don't know when I'll be back again. Oh, babe.
Bye.
Bye. Catch you later.